One union says changes to draft government guidance for universities was wrong. Originally, it would have said work and study that can be done remotely must be done so. This was removed.
We were really disappointed because it removed the clarity. It removed that clarity that work that could be done remotely should be done remotely, and it's given universities a clause, guidance to hide behind.
But the First Minister says there is still strict guidance on face-to-face teaching.
The guidance that was published puts limits on face-to-face teaching, quite strict limits on face-to-face teaching in terms of overall numbers that can be in lecture theatres, for example. So, of course, wording and guidance will change as we consult and take different views on it, but it was never the case that in an earlier draft of that, face-to-face teaching. In terms of the earlier guidance, I've read media reports this morning, which I have to say, and I'll say this mildly, it's quite selective in its quoting. Guidance does, almost every piece of guidance that a government will publish, and certainly this is true of the Scottish Government, goes through various iterations as we consult stakeholders and look at whether the wording is clear enough or we need to amend it for whatever reason. So the report this morning looked at draft guidance that was I think, issued on the 30th of August and quoted this from it. And basically what the story was trying to say is that on the 30th of August in draft guidance, we had basically decided there would be no face-to-face teaching, and then that changed in the final guidance. That's not the case. So the quote from the guidance that was in the story this morning was work and study that can be done remotely should be done from home. Unfortunately, the quote didn't go on to complete the rest of what the draft guidance said, which is where that is not possible, then physical distancing must be followed, and then the rest of the draft guidance talks about what needs to be done around cleaning, physical distancing, use of PPE. Now, the point I'm making here is that it was always envisaged that there would be some physical face-to-face teaching. That was not something that changed in the way suggested between draft guidance and final guidance, and there were always protections built into the earlier drafts of the guidance about what to do where face-to-face teaching was being done. But the guidance that was published puts limits on face-to-face teaching, quite strict limits on face-to-face teaching in terms of overall numbers that can be in lecture theatres, for example. So I think the report I've read today, I think it suggests something that is not actually the case. Of course, wording and guidance will change as we consult and take different views on it, but it was never the case that in an earlier draft of that, face-to-face teaching was not envisaged in any circumstances.